The banner was still smoking when I took the photo. Red block letters stretched across the garage like a headline. "Goodbye, freeloader. Don't come back." My father stood under it, in a grill apron, arms wide open, like he was unveiling something he had built with his own hands. In a way, I suppose he had. My name is Ava. I am 30 years old, and the day my family celebrated throwing me out was the last day they ever had power over me. But to understand what happened at that party, you need to understand what happened in the 3 years before it. Because the story they told the neighbors was simple. I was the daughter who could not get it together, divorced before I ever married, working from a laptop, living off her father at 30 while everyone else carried her. That story played well at church cookouts. It played well under Facebook posts, where people typed things like, "Tough love works," and maybe this will finally wake her up. The truth was quieter, far more useful to them if nobody ever said it out loud. I had moved back into my father's house 3 years earlier, not because I was drifting, because his business was drowning and he would never ask for help directly. He ran a sign company, Bennett Graphics, storefront signage, vinyl wraps, trade show displays. It had always looked solid from the outside. Then, supply costs shot up. 2 big clients paid late. One project got buried in permit issues. Suddenly, the company that had looked stable for 20 years was surviving week to week on borrowed time and practiced confidence. My father did what he always did. When things got difficult, he got louder. He blamed the economy. He blamed lazy workers. He blamed regulations and bad luck, and everyone except the man in the mirror. What he never mentioned was that I was the reason the company had not collapsed 2 years sooner. I worked remotely as a freelance bid coordinator. I helped small contractors and regional suppliers organize their documentation, clean up proposals, track deadlines before they became disasters. My family called it my little computer hobby. My father would walk through the kitchen while I was on a call preventing an $11,000 contract cancellation and say, "Must be nice." He treated my competence like a household appliance, useful when he needed it, embarrassing when acknowledged. The first month I was back, I just reorganized some invoices. The second month, I caught a missed permit renewal that would have cost him a municipal account. Then I found equipment leases set to auto-renew at absurd rates. Then, a bookkeeper who had quit without handing anything off cleanly. Then, receivables that existed only on paper because nobody was following up. Every time I fixed one thing, 2 more surfaced behind it, like rot under drywall. When clients called during dinner and I saved a job from imploding, he acted like I had accidentally done something cute. When I covered a payroll gap one Friday, because he would rather disappear than admit he could not pay his installers. He told people later that families do not keep score. Families do not keep score. Remember that sentence, because families like mine only say it when they benefit from nobody counting. I paid for more than the business. Software subscriptions, overdue utility balances tied to the workshop, insurance reinstatement fees on one of the vans, rush shipping on materials he forgot to order, 3 separate vendor deposits that would have killed active projects if they had bounced. I never paid everything at once. That is why it stayed hidden. I paid the difference. The shortfall. The amount needed to keep the machine from breaking loudly enough for outsiders to hear. My uncle circled the business, like a man who had nowhere else to be, working installation shifts and half-hearted sales between weekend drinking that leaked into weekdays. My sister learned early that mocking me earned approval from our father. My grandmother wrapped every cruelty in scripture and concern. Nobody had to coordinate it. That is the genius of a toxic family system. Once the hierarchy is clear, everyone knows how to perform without rehearsal. What changed was not their opinion of me. What changed was a Friday night when I overheard my father in the backyard telling my uncle and a neighbor that he was thinking of giving me 90 days to leave because maybe hitting bottom would finally make a woman out of her. They laughed. My sister laughed too. And something inside me went very quiet. Not broken, not angry. Quiet in the way that water goes quiet, right before it finds the crack in the dam. I did not cry. I did not confront him. I opened my laptop and I started documenting. People think revenge begins with rage. Mine began with a spreadsheet. Not because I am cold, because in a family like mine, rage gets rewritten instantly. The second you cry, you are unstable. The second you raise your voice, you are disrespectful. The second you defend yourself, you are proving their point. Evidence was the only language my father could not interrupt. I built a record of everything, a timeline going back 30 months. Every emergency payment, every software renewal, every permit fee I covered, because the city portal would have shut them out otherwise. Every text where he said, "Can you just handle this one thing?" Every voicemail from my uncle asking for a couple hundred before Monday to save the van. Every time my sister asked me to front her rent, and every time she never paid it back. The total, when I finally added it up, made me sit back in my chair and stare at the ceiling. The company support alone had crossed $112,000. Not a feeling, not a grievance, a number with receipts attached. Around the same time that number appeared on my screen, a contract offer arrived from a client in Colorado. Long-term, stable, enough to rent my own place and stop building my life around people who only valued me when I was useful and invisible. I signed it. I put down a deposit on an apartment outside Denver. I told no one. I started moving my things out in batches so gradual nobody noticed. Winter clothes 1 week, books the next. The expensive monitor my father assumed had appeared in the house by magic. He beat me to the eviction speech by 6 days. Tuesday morning, kitchen table. That voice people use when they expect applause for their cruelty. He said he was doing this because he loved me enough to stop enabling me. He said no good man would ever respect a woman still leaning on her father at 30. He said I needed a real job, my own place, and a wake-up call. I asked him one question. Do you want me gone, or do you want an audience when I leave? He smirked and said, maybe both. So I gave him an audience. Saturday afternoon, I drove back for the last box. The grill was smoking. Country music was blasting. My uncle was on the patio swinging a beer bottle like a sermon. My sister stood near the grill in full makeup, already recording the party for social media because humiliation is more entertaining. when you can add music to it. My grandmother sat under the patio umbrella, with that pinched expression she wore whenever meanness was being performed in the name of righteousness. And my father stood under that banner with his arms wide open. Someone threw a hot dog at my car. Someone screamed, "There is your last free meal." Even the children were pointing. I stood there holding my keys so tight they dug into my palm. And the strangest thing was this: nobody there believed they were lying. That was the story they had told so often they had become it. I walked inside, got the box, came back out, lifted my phone, took the photo. My father saw me and smirked, like I was collecting a souvenir. He called after me. "What? Collecting evidence for your therapist?" I looked straight at him and said my first words of the entire afternoon. "No. For later." Then I left. Silence is a terrifying thing when people are used to your labor arriving on demand. The first 3 days nobody called. They thought they had won. That is how entitlement works. It mistakes absence for surrender, right up until the machine starts shaking. Monday, a municipal client rejected a permit resubmission because the insurance certificate had expired. Normally, I would have caught the notice, called the broker, fixed it before anyone panicked. This time, the email sat in the inbox until the client wrote directly. Final delay before reassignment. My father called once. I let it ring. Tuesday, the project management software went dark because the backup card was gone and the primary card declined. Work orders, install dates, material notes. All of it inaccessible until someone fixed billing. Wednesday morning, the power company left a shut-off warning on the workshop account. My father called at 7 in the morning using the voice he saved for pastors and bank managers. "Ava, sweetheart, there is some confusion with the utility account. I think maybe your card was still linked somehow. We can straighten it out. Confusion." I nearly admired the audacity. By Friday, my sister was crying on the phone. She needed $600. The med spa had cut her hours. Dad had promised to help, but apparently there was some issue with payroll. She said, "Please, do not make this into a thing." That phrase had followed me for years like a curse. Do not make it a thing when Dean made jokes about my body. Do not make it a thing when Dad used my room for storage. Do not make it a thing when Kelsey borrowed money and forgot. Do not make it a thing when Grandma compared me to women with husbands and church dresses. My pain was always the thing. Their behavior was just weather. Saturday morning, my father called 6 times before noon. By the 3rd voicemail, the swagger was gone. By the 5th, so was the anger. On the 6th, all that remained was panic wearing a necktie. "Ava, please call me back. I am asking as your father. We need to clear up what exactly you have been paying and what you turned off. If this is some kind of lesson, okay. Lesson learned. Call me. Lesson learned. Not I am sorry. Not we were wrong. Just the managerial language of a man discovering that his hidden infrastructure has feelings. That afternoon, I assembled a packet. Not dramatic, not vindictive, clean, professional. 31 pages, cover sheet, timeline, amounts, screenshots, payment references, emergency interventions, with dates. separate sections for company expenses, household support, direct transfers to family members, and unpaid administrative labor. At the end, one photo, the banner over the garage, my family laughing beneath it. We met Monday at a diner off the highway where truckers ate breakfast, and nobody cared if a grown man looked like he had not slept. My uncle was with him. Men like Dean only believe women are serious when another man is present. To absorb the shock, I put the packet on the table. My father looked at it like paper could insult him. "What is this?" he said. I slid it across. The difference between your story and mine. He opened it like a man expecting nonsense. That confidence lasted maybe 10 seconds. His eyes dropped to the total, then snapped back to me like the number itself had spoken. He flipped pages. He objected. He called it inflated, ridiculous, taken out of context. I answered every objection with a date and a screenshot. Eventually, he reached the photo, the banner, the smoke from the grill, everyone laughing. His posture changed. Not remorse. Risk assessment. "You took this for leverage," he said. "No," I said. "I took it because I knew you would pretend it was not that bad." Then, he asked the only question that had ever mattered to him. "How much of this can you turn back on? Not 'are you okay?' Not 'we were wrong?' Not 'I am sorry?' Just operations." I answered honestly. Some things can be fixed. Some cannot. But I want you to understand something first. If I had paid market rent to a stranger and kept my money away from your business, you would have lost that workshop 18 months ago. The only reason you got to call me a freeloader is because I loved you quietly." He had no answer for that. I stood to leave. He stopped me with his final move. "If you walk out now, do not expect to come back when things turn around." I picked up my keys. "Dad, the only reason things ever turned around in that family was because I was standing behind you, pushing." Then I walked out into the morning light, into the first day of a life that belonged entirely to me. Colorado suited me. One contract became more, then referrals, then an LLC with deposits up front, and real boundaries. I learned what dinner felt like when nobody was manufacturing a crisis in the next room. The peace felt strange at first. Toxic families train you to distrust calm. But I learned. 6 months later, a recipe card arrived in the mail. No note, just my mother's handwriting on a worn index card. "Chicken pot pie," with a small note at the bottom in her hand. "Add more time if Richard complains." I laughed so suddenly, I cried. I framed it. People still ask whether I regret not helping one last time. That question sounds kind, but it hides the same old trap. It assumes the most moral person in the story is the one who sacrifices again. I do not believe that anymore. If someone calls you family only when they need your labor, your money, or your silence, they are not protecting a relationship. They are protecting a system. My father's greatest mistake was not throwing the party. It was believing that the person he humiliated would still keep the lights on after. I was never the freeloader. I was the hidden payroll, the midnight fix, the buffer between chaos and consequence. And the day I finally understood that was the day I stopped being theirs and started being mine. If this story found you tonight, you already know why. I will see you in the next one.